Welcome back to the channel, to another descent with me into darkness. Tonight we're venturing into places where the line between our world and the next is razor thin, where the echoes of conflict linger long after the battles have ceased. We're talking about haunted military forts, so gather close, turn down the lights and prepare yourself, because tonight we delve into 3 terrifying tales from haunted military forts. Stories that will chill you to the bone. Our journey begins at Fort Mifflin, a sentinel of stone and earth on the Delaware River, standing as a silent guardian of history. It's a place that has witnessed centuries of American history, from the Revolutionary War to the War of 1812 and beyond. But beneath the surface of its storied past lies a darkness, a shadow that many have felt but few can explain. Many believe Fort Mifflin to be one of the most haunted places in America, a place where the past refuses to rest. One night, a group of friends decided to brave the fort's ominous aura for a late-night exploration, driven by curiosity and a thirst for adventure. As they navigated the fort's labyrinthine corridors, the walls seemed to close in on them. A bone-chilling coldness descended upon them, seeping into their very bones. The air grew heavy and the jovial mood was replaced by an unsettling quiet, as if the fort itself was holding its breath. They pressed on, their flashlights cutting through the darkness, casting long, eerie shadows on the ancient walls, until they reached the fort's infamous Casemate 11, a place shrouded in legend and fear. This chamber, steeped in shadow and despair, held the echoes of countless souls who had suffered within its confines, had borne witness to unspeakable suffering during the Revolutionary War, a silent testament to the horrors of the past. It was there, deep within Casemate 11, that they heard it, the unmistakable sound of heavy footsteps echoing in the distance. Someone or something was pacing in the darkness just beyond their reach, an unseen presence that sent shivers down their spines. One of the friends, emboldened by a mixture of fear and curiosity, called out into the void, hoping for a response. "Hello? Is anyone there?" Silence. The fort seemed to swallow their words. Then a soft, ethereal glow emanated from the end of the corridor, a light that seemed to defy the darkness. It flickered like a candle flame, casting long, dancing shadows on the ancient stone walls, creating an almost hypnotic effect. As they cautiously approached the light, their hearts pounded in their chests, each step echoing in the silence. The glow intensified, revealing the unmistakable silhouette of a man dressed in a tattered military uniform, a ghostly figure from the past. He stood motionless, his back turned towards them as if frozen in time, a spectral guardian of the fort. For a moment, time seemed to stand still, the air thick with anticipation and fear. The friends stared in disbelief, their minds struggling to comprehend what their eyes were seeing, a ghostly apparition from another era. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the figure vanished, dissolving into the shadows, leaving behind only the faint scent of gunpowder and the echo of their own racing hearts, a haunting reminder of the fort's spectral past. The friends left Fort Mifflin that night, forever changed by their encounter with the phantom soldier, a story they would carry with them always. Our next story takes us to the windswept shores of the Atlantic, to the imposing ramparts of Fort Pulaski in Savannah, Georgia. This bastion of brick and mortar, once a symbol of American military might, now stands as a haunting testament to a tragic love story. This is the story of the tragic general, a tale whispered among the locals and recounted with a mixture of sadness and dread. Fort Pulaski is said to be haunted by the specter of a former commander, a man consumed by grief and bound to the site of his greatest sorrow. He roams the fort's grounds, his heart heavy with a love lost too soon, a love that once brought him immense joy and now only brings him endless sorrow. They say he was a stern but fair leader, respected by his men and feared by his enemies. His leadership was marked by discipline and a deep sense of duty. But beneath his hardened exterior beat the heart of a man deeply in love with a woman who brought light and laughter into his regimented world. She was the one who made the harsh realities of his life bearable. Her laughter, they say, once echoed through the fort's corridors, a stark contrast to the clang of weaponry and the barked orders of soldiers. It was a sound that brought warmth to the cold stone walls. She was his solace, his escape from the harsh realities of war and leadership. In her presence, he found a peace that eluded him elsewhere. But their love story, like the fort itself, was destined for tragedy. The looming clouds of war cast a shadow over their happiness. As tensions between the North and South escalated, the general was called upon to defend Fort Pulaski from an impending attack. The weight of duty pressed heavily upon him. He bid farewell to his beloved, promising to return to her once the conflict had subsided. Their parting was filled with unspoken fears and a deep sense of foreboding. She watched him go, her heart heavy with a premonition she couldn't shake. The uncertainty of war loomed large in her mind. Days turned into weeks, and the weeks stretched into agonizing months. Each day without news felt like an eternity. The general, true to his word, fought bravely, his thoughts never straying far from his beloved. Her memory was his guiding light in the darkest of times. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. The winds of destiny were cruel and unyielding. One fateful day, a stray cannonball fired from the Union lines found its mark, not on the fort's defenses, but on the heart of the general's world. The impact was devastating. The news reached him like a physical blow, stealing the air from his lungs and leaving behind a desolate emptiness. The loss was more than he could bear. His grief was all-consuming, a tempest that raged within the confines of his soul. The once strong and resolute general was now a broken man, haunted by the memories of a love that was cruelly taken from him. Our final tale takes us to the desolate landscape of the American Southwest, to Fort Laramie, Wyoming, a place where the wind whispers tales of hardship, violence, and the unyielding grip of the past. The very air seems to carry the weight of countless stories, each more haunting than the last. It's here, within the weathered walls of this once bustling military outpost, that we encounter a different breed of haunting, one marked by malevolence and an insatiable hunger for fear. The fort, now a shadow of its former self, holds secrets that chill the bone. Unlike the tragic figures of our previous stories, the entity that haunts Fort Laramie is not a soul seeking peace or resolution. It is something darker, something more primal and unsettling. A malevolent spirit fueled by the pain and suffering that permeates the fort's very foundation. The very stones seem to echo with the cries of the past. The story begins with a young park ranger, fresh out of training and eager to prove himself. He was full of enthusiasm and a sense of adventure, ready to take on any challenge. Assigned to the night shift at Fort Laramie, he initially dismissed the local legends and ghost stories as mere folklore, the product of overactive imaginations and long nights spent alone in the darkness. He thought the tales were just stories to scare newcomers. But his skepticism was soon put to the test. His first few nights passed uneventfully, the silence broken only by the howling wind and the creaking of the old fort settling around him. But then something changed. The air grew heavy, as if a weight had settled over the entire fort. It was as though the very atmosphere had thickened with an unseen presence. He began to notice strange occurrences, subtle at first, but unsettling nonetheless. Objects seemed to move on their own, and shadows danced where there should be none. Footsteps echoed through the empty corridors. Doors creaked open and closed as if pushed by an unseen hand, and whispers seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. One particularly cold night, as he made his rounds, he felt an icy breath on the back of his neck, sending a shiver down his spine. He spun around, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, but found nothing. Undeterred, he continued his patrol, his hand trembling slightly as he gripped his flashlight tighter. The sense of being watched was almost palpable. As he entered the old hospital building, a sense of dread washed over him. The building seemed to exude a malevolent energy. The air grew thick with the scent of antiseptic and the lingering presence of suffering. It was as if the walls themselves had absorbed the pain of those who had suffered there. It was here, in this building that had borne witness to so much pain and death, that the true nature of the haunting revealed itself. The atmosphere was charged with a sinister energy. He heard a blood-curdling scream, a sound so primal and filled with terror that it stopped his heart for a beat. It was a scream that seemed to come from the very depths of despair. He ran towards the sound, his flashlight beam dancing wildly as he searched for the source of the scream. His heart pounded in his chest as he moved through the darkened halls. In the dimly lit ward, he saw a figure hovering over one of the sight was both surreal and terrifying. It was a grotesque mockery of a human form, its body twisted and contorted, its face a mask of pure malice. The malevolent spirit seemed to feed off his fear. As he watched in horror, the figure turned towards him, its eyes burning with an infernal light. The ranger stumbled backward, his hand instinctively reaching for his radio. He knew he had to call for help, but his voice seemed to catch in his throat. So there you have it. 3 chilling tales from haunted military forts that stand as eerie reminders of the darkness that can linger long after the battles have ended. These forts, once symbols of strength and resilience, now serve as haunting grounds for restless spirits forever bound to the sites of their demise. If you enjoyed these creepy tales, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more spine-chilling stories. We're always on the lookout for new and terrifying tales to share, so be sure to let us know in the comments about your favorite haunted locations. And until next time, stay safe and stay scared. For the world is a vast and mysterious place filled with shadows and secrets that are best left undisturbed. Or are they?